Thank you for joining us for our afternoon session. I trust we all had a good lunch. Wonderful. For our first part, we're going to have a panel of discussion with the Raising Wildlife leaders, so very exciting. Please be ready to just get to learn more about our new and third strategy and some of the impacts it has already had on some of the conservationists that are in the room. So I'm going to introduce our moderator for the session. Dr. Rocio, can you please come through? Thank you. As well as the panelists who each introduce themselves.
Get up here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being with us here this afternoon after lunch. We'll try to keep you entertained. I was really honored to be invited to moderate this panel with my friends and to share with you a little bit some of our stories about what it means to really be working in conservation. Because we know our communities, we love our land, we love our species that we work with, and we have this passion. But it's not a path of roses, or however you say it in English. It's like, it's challenging sometimes. It gets from burnout to disrespect, from lack of funding to complete isolation. It can get to be very, very challenging. And that's when mentoring and support becomes like a fundamental tool for us to stay in this job. I'm Rocio Palacios. I'm from Argentina, and I work in the conservation of a highly endangered and very rare small wildcat. This wildcat lives in the high Andes in very hard-to-reach locations. So when I was 30 years old and I got pregnant, I was terrified because I thought I had to make a choice between my life's passion and my son. But I got a Sidney Bayer scholarship that provided me money for doing fieldwork for my PhD. And I got another scholarship from the Argentinian government to be able to sustain my family. And without those two supports, I would probably not be here speaking with you today. So this was probably one of the most challenging moments of my life. Now I want to ask my friends here, what was your biggest challenge in your life?
Thanks, Rocio.
Because she's looking at you, so I thought that, okay, you should start.
I know, it's always a bit hard when everybody looks at you and it's like, oh, should I take it or should I say ladies first? Now that I've been challenged. My name is Peter Lalampa. I work for Grave Zebra Trust in northern Kenya, and I work on a species that had a dramatic decline in numbers. I'm sure you're going to hear a lot about what we do with the communities, about the species, in the next section. And so, based on your question, Rocio, I'll say that being a conservationist and coming from pastoral communities, it's not easy. It's not easy because, you're trying to balance a lot of things. And not so many of us have mentors in our life that you can look up to and say, so-and-so had left pastoralism, he had gone through this path, and I want to go through that path. I'll say that in terms of my path as a conservationist, yes, I was lucky enough to have had the experience of going out, adding livestock, and interacting with wildlife when I was still very young. But the whole idea of conservation, as much as pastoral communities are actually conservationists in nature, conservation is a new field when you look at the global situation. And so for me, the first challenge that I had, you're excited, you've just finished university, you want to make a change, you want to go back to your community and make a change. You're so young, and sometimes you feel like, do I really have the stamina? Do I really have the knowledge to be able to influence this change that I want to bring within the community? And so that was my first challenge as a conservationist. Going out, meeting people who are gray hair, have been in conservation for long. What do I tell them about conservation?
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. That's so interesting and it's so relatable. My name is Jessica Kurere, and I'm with Ewaso Lions. I am a veterinarian, and many people see me and they're like, "You're so tiny, and are you sure you're, qualified enough?" And that is one of the biggest challenges that we get to encounter in Kenya. Veterinary medicine is so scarce. There's very few of us, let alone being a woman. And the first challenge that I got to experience being in conservation was that being a girl, a female, and being in the veterinary field, you would often have to work double the effort a gentleman would have to work. So I found it like a culture that I would have to put double effort. If someone is doing 5 hours, I have to do 10 hours. If someone is doing 2 hours, I would have to put in more effort, and that leads to burnout. As a veterinarian, you're used to telling you, if you see a tick, call me. If you see a dog coughing and, showing all the symptoms, tell me. As a veterinarian, people would tell me, "You know what, Jess?" Boile would always tell me, and Shivani, "Watch out for burnout." And I was like, what is burnout? I am young and strong and I have a lot of energy, and I'm waiting for these clinical symptoms, and no one really tells you what the symptoms of burnout are. And I started experiencing. 4 months into my first job, working with Ewaso Lions, we started having dogs dying. It started with 1, then 2, then 5, then 10, then 20, then in hundreds. People were calling me, and I was overwhelmed. I was not eating, I was not sleeping, and there were times I would wake up and say, am I really in the right job? Am I strong enough for this work? And I didn't know it was my body saying, hey, you have reached your limits. You need to take it slow. You need to slow down. You need to sleep. You need to extend grace to yourself to be able to be sustainable. And that was my biggest challenge coming up. And I am really learning. I am still in the process of learning and telling myself, it is not wrong to take a break and rest. You're not doing a wrong thing. You don't have to unrest. So that is something that I am still learning.
Thank you. Thank you. And for me, I would say in 2 words, maybe uncertainties and confidence. As someone who passionate to try to introduce new ideas, right? And you want someone to listen and ready to see your potential. You have so much to give, but because you are new, you're new face, people what can she do, And then being able to join program like Emerging Wildlife Conservation Leaders, have supporters like, for example, Houston Zoo is the one who found me, and then they show me and join all this training, and it's really open up my mind that I'm not alone in this. I have people who's behind me that ready to yes, and just telling me that I'm in the right path, it's slowly. You want to implement all this idea. I know you have, and you're very passionate, but calm down. And it's very, very, very important to have someone that, okay, take a breath and think about it, the idea and things like that. So,
in relation to that, Farina, you forgot to introduce yourself.
Oh,
this is Dr.
Yeah, so my name is Farina, and I'm working with the Bornean elephants in Borneo, Sabah.
So you were telling me yesterday when we were talking about a turning point in your career that was related to a previous experience with a different organization. And I think it's a very good example of how sometimes even good organizations can have a bad impact on us, and how empowering these kind of programs can be.
Yeah, it's either bad, the way how you see it. For me, it's really making me see that my potential, that it's really an eye-opener that I can do this, and I have the will, I have the resources, I have people behind me that wants me to do difference in my own country. And being a national, I think I can build that trust, better. So what happened, they always apply to grants using my name, building capacity, and I never know where the resources goes, and and I have no chance to implement my idea. So one day I decided I'm going to start this program on my own, and then this organization kept coming to me saying that, you know how hard it is to apply for grant, you know how hard it is to do this, you don't know this, you don't know how to do that. I said, I don't care. I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to go out there, whatever it is, I know people are behind me, that for sure.
I think that one thing that we were also talking yesterday, and this question goes for everybody, is like when we are in our country, sometimes we don't get exposed to the same kind of challenges in other realities. Right. And when we go to these programs and we get exposed to different realities, it kind of opens our mind and provides us a lot of tools that we were not expecting. Somebody want to share some of that, some ideas?
Yeah, sure, I can go ahead. I am part of the Wildlife Conservation Network Early Career Program. So it's a program that was recently started. I was part of the first cohort, and it's really, really been so beneficial. So I am working full-time in Samburu, which is about 8 hours away from like the nearest urban center. And when you're starting out in your career, especially a professional career like veterinary medicine, I'm sure Peter will attest to this. I mean, they're old. Absolutely. Our average age group is about 50. They're all in their older ages. So for you being a young person and trying to contribute to the knowledge and to the pool of resources, either you have to have more than 20 years of experience or do your master's or PhD. And for you to be working full-time in work, it's a decision, it's a tough decision that you have to make. Are you going to continue working full-time, or are you going to leave your work and go pursue a master's? And we really don't have to make that choice, because we have people leaving conservation, going to do their master's, and then coming years later, or having people working full-time with no career development, especially in professional careers. So the Wildlife Conservation Network Early Career Program have provided me support to be able to work full-time and effectively, but also get continuous development through funding, through mentorship. Through the past 2 years, I've gotten so many trainings. I've been able to grow in comparison to choosing between either growing or working full-time. And I've been able to manage both effectively. It is possible. I mean, we're needed there to work full-time to be able to implement change as conservationists in our area. We still also want to grow as individuals in our professional careers. So the early career program has been so beneficial to me in terms of, you know, still retaining me and growing in experience, but also growing as a professional, so that I can be able to grow holistically as an individual and as a professional.
Which is very true, if I can add up to that. Very, very true. Because for me, I remember, you know, after joining Grave Zebra Trust, I was so sure. Traditionally, I have a lot of knowledge in terms of what I want to do as a pastoralist. But you go out there, and just as she has said, you meet people, you know, scientists, ecologists, who've studied, you know, a number of species. And they're very knowledgeable when it comes to writing papers, writing theses, and all that. But you go to a policy-making meeting where you meet government officials, and people will be like, you're a doctor? Yes. Then they will give him the year because he has a PhD. Or maybe that person doesn't have the same context that you have based on the wildlife that you're talking about. And so I kind of like had this yearning. I really want to get my acts right in terms of the education. And so I started looking at, where do I get my master's? Because that's the next thing that I want to get, for me to be listened to by policymakers, by partners on the ground, and make sure that I make a difference. Because if I talk the local language, yes, my community will understand me. But when I sit in a policy-making table, they will first of all look at you, oh, it's Dr. Ross you're talking. Oh, Peter, you can wait. Your assignment can come later. And so, thanks to WCN, I was able to.
I thought it happened only to women, but men as well? Oh my God.
Very true.
You can imagine if I'm with Peter now, they'll say, oh, you're a, yeah.
And so that's true to all genders. And, you know, I don't think it has to be that way. And thanks to WCN scholarship, the UCO program, some of us got that experience to, you know, interact with the rest of the people in the different part of the globe and get to learn the challenges they're going through, the challenges we're going through. And that actually puts you in a situation where you start realizing it's not me alone.
And that brings me to the work with communities, you know, because we all work with the communities, and we are from the communities, but working with communities is like taking care of a very delicate flower. We know how it is. It's not just because you are from the community, it's going to be smooth and easy. You have to develop a relationship, and it takes a lot of time, patience, empathy. But when it blooms, and when you see success, it's fantastic. It makes you feel that everything is worth it. And Like in our case, when we got this herder, for instance, that told us, like for the first time, that he was sleeping all night because the livestock guarding dog was protecting his animals. Or the other guy that told us that for the first time in his life, he can go to his kids' school place because he could leave the house because mountain lions are not going to attack their herds. They changed their lives, and the dogs changed their lives, and they changed their relationship with the animals, with the wildlife. So that is success for me. Do you want to tell us what success looks for you? What is your experience working with communities?
Yeah, Rosho, I think for me, success while working with the community is a point where community own and drive the agenda of conservation. Because we tend to define conservation based on our lenses. But what's the lens of a community member? How do they see conservation? And how is conservation defined? Is it defined based on our theories that we learned in school? Or is it defined based on the traditional knowledge? Because to me, that is key. If we have to talk about sustainability, if we have to talk about community ownership, then the community must define conservation based on their traditional knowledge, based on their language.
Thank you, Peter. That was great.
Yep. Success for me is me making more mistakes. I know it sounds odd. I throw a party when I make mistakes. And it's amazing how many young people are so scared to make mistakes because they're not given opportunities to make mistakes. And through making mistakes is how you learn. For me, success was holding my first vaccination campaign, Shivani taking the back seat and allowing me to host 20 veterinarians, planning the food, planning the vaccines, and the last day having a success. And I really made mistakes in between, and she was like, it's so okay. I planned the second campaign, the third campaign, the fourth campaign. I can hardly count the number of campaigns I've been able to do. And that is growth. We want to not only have young people implementing work, because we have a lot of energy, you know, you can send us to the field and do a lot of things, but we want young people to be able to be in positions to lead. But how will they lead if they're scared to make mistakes or being given room to make mistakes? So success for me is not only having faces of a few young people around here. Success for me would be having young, emerging leaders who are able to lead and allowed to make mistakes and not scared to make them.
Oh my God, I'm speechless now because I feel so motivated with what you just said. So for me, like working with the community, like I said this morning in my presentation, a lot of people think that elephants are scary, they are beasts, they are pests. So a lot of the time when we do like elephant control, for example, they will say that let's push the elephants go, let's force the elephants, and what we call in our language as halau, meaning that you force the elephants using firecracker, using like noise cannon, using so many things. So it's really, really bad because we know it can affect the behavior of the elephant, and they will start to think that we are their enemies, right? So, but then we slowly try to introduce, instead of using the word forcing the elephant going or halau in bahasa, we call it, you know, like herding them. So now we say it as we will mengiring. So iring means that I walk and then I walk together with I'm going to show, but so you are kind of herding like you do with a cow, but this is elephant. So you know peacefully how to do that, and they have confidence to do that, and they want to do it peacefully. So, and now most of them, not yet the community like overall, but at least the wildlife department of Sabah, they start to use this word. We want, let's herd back the elephants to the less sensitive area, rather than let's halau, and it'll be like, halau, you know, very negative, so that let's herd back the elephant. So I see that happening in terms of language, so I want to see it more and more.
That is fantastic. I think it's a perfect example of behavioral change, how we see how people change their behavior with nature, and that's the magic happening. And I really want to open the floor to questions, because I think because you are falling asleep, I want you to participate a little bit more. So, but as a final reflection, a final thought, we are here representing a huge amount of people. I was trying to think from our organization alone. In the Andean Cat Alliance, we are 30-something. It changes between 33 and 36, give or take. And I would say that at least 10 people were benefited by some of the professional development programs that WCN has provided over the years. And I'm talking about the career program, the Rising Conservation Leaders, EUCOL, all the different scholarships that we have, other professional development opportunities. And it has been a game changer because when you are from one of our countries, you don't really get exposed to these options enough. So the power that these programs have to change conservation locally it's really hard to prove. As I told you, at least 10 people from our organization became better and more effective conservationists by going to meet other programs, by participating, like getting a master's or a PhD or some other kind of support. So I really want to acknowledge that and to thank WCN for all the support over the years for us and for all the other ones that are not here. So thank you so much, and let's do questions.
Right there. I think it was very informative, and people have really learned a lot from that. But there's one particular question that people would like to find out from you is, from what you're learning and the exposure you're getting through all these opportunities for you in the Rising Wildlife Leaders, how are you paying that forward, and what lessons have you learned along the way? Start with you.
Thank you. So I think for me, how am I paying that forward? The fact that, I got the scholarship, went to England, and decided to go back home, that for me, I wanted to give back to my community. And every day, as I wake up, go to field, I know I had an opportunity. And I had an opportunity to make a change. I had an opportunity to contribute to positive, activities or positive actions within my community. And so that, as much as I might get tired at the job, but I know I'm indebted. I'm indebted to the scholarship I got, to the community that I work with, and that drives me to make sure that I deliver in my work in northern Kenya. There are challenges, definitely. And the biggest challenge that I always look at is when you're empowered and you feel like you want to see results. But maybe you have very few people around you that sometimes you want to delegate to. And so you always feel like, where do I get another scholarship to make sure that I can clone Peter to be 2? Because he can burn out. And Belinda can tell you, sometimes she calls me like, when was the last time you went for your off? You should take an off. I'm like, but there's something else that needs to be done here. And so to me, burnout is a big challenge, just as he has said, just because you want to see results. You want to make sure that you deliver what you went back to do back at home.
Show results.
Yeah. So I take, can you guys hear me? Okay, right, okay. Before I ask her if I can say, sure, before please. I forget my point. So basically, I think I want to become, I want to inspire more Malaysian. Like I already have my colleague who just started, she started with me, but I'm a bit like maybe 1 or 2 steps in front of her. And I already recommended her, and I really, I will force Laura and Paul to accept her, and also Jeff in the next EUCOL class. She also started her program in Pangolin, and whenever we see it, like, oh, Farina, you are my inspiration. So I'm hoping to inspire like more Malaysians to do this, especially women, because, they're looking at me, they say that if she can do it, I don't know why do they think I can't at the first place. If she can do it, then we can also. So I really hope to do that.
Great.
I have learned a lot from the career program. One thing I have come to appreciate is how diverse we are. In the career program, we're 8 of us. We are 8 young people, but we are in so many different parts in our lives, and we are learning so many different things. I have come to appreciate that forming an individual takes growth in every aspect of their life. Financial literacy, growing in leadership, being okay as an individual, health-wise, mentally, physically. So that is one thing I have come to be really interested about and passionate about, growing as an individual holistically. Have I figured out yet how I'm going to grow that? Not yet. I am still working on myself. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that will blossom, because when we have healthy, holistic, individual conservationists, then that will translate to a bigger action. But if we have people who are struggling to be as individuals in very different aspects of their lives, often the whole organization will struggle. So that is something I have become aware of and really interested and passionate about. There's a podcast that I have come to really love. It's called Conserving Conservationists, and it's really interesting. Let's conserve ourselves. Let's take care of ourselves. Let's keep growing in all aspects of our lives, because when we conserve ourselves, we're able to conserve what we are conserving.
I think that related to what you said about younger generations, because I'm probably older than you guys, I think that one of the very important things that I still do all the time, of course, as soon as we receive Becca's email that the scholarships are open, that everything is open, we send it to everybody. We have a system, somebody wants to apply, we're always accessible to answer questions, not just to our organization, but to other partners and associates from the field. But besides that is very practical. I think that a good example is I never forget where I come from. Like, I came from a university, and when I was going to the university, I had my professors telling me, you're going to be a failure if you don't get a 9 out of 10, prometheus, like a grades. You're going to be useless. You're not going to be able to ever do whatever you want to do. And it was a constant struggle against the tide to feel that we can do conservation. In a country like mine, it was almost impossible. So I am living my dream, doing conservation with a wildcat in the wild lands and working with communities. I never forget that. So if I get an email from a young student saying, I want to collaborate with you, I dream to work with cats, I always answer those emails. Even if I don't have a position for them to come to the field with us, I'd let them know, just send this sheet and you're going to be listed in our volunteers program, and don't lose hope. There is a path. You can do it. You can stay in conservation. Just don't lose your north. I always do it. It sounds cheesy, but I always do it because I think it makes a difference for younger people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there a burning question in the audience? Oh, there we have a hand there. Just a second, the mic is coming to you. Thank you.
We love questions, guys. Ask
All
questions.
right. I just wanted to know what advice you would give kids who are looking to join conservation as a career in the future.
Well, I would tell them the same thing I just said. Just keep on doing it. And for instance, in our case, because we work in such remote locations and the conditions we work are not comfortable, we prefer people that has field experience, even if they go camping with their parents from the young age, whatever, exposure to the field is more important for us than the grades they got in the university. And the attitude, you have to have a positive attitude. You have to keep your north. It's like in any other live stream that you have a passion, you just have to keep on working to, with your north in mind. So that's what we look when we look for volunteers from any backgrounds. That's our case.
So for me, I think lead by example. So if I feel that there is an opportunity for other people, I will just show them it is not easy. I will be truth with them. It's not easy, but you have to take it steps by steps. And it's okay to admit that you are the power of yet. I always use the power of yet. I might not be able to do this yet. I always do that. Then I will once I say that, then my brain will open, my muscles will ready to work. And I also show them you're not doing this for you or for money. You are helping another creature to live in this world. So for me, it's always lead by example.
Nice.
go for it. What is conservation? I mean, we often think that conservation is a set career. When I was called to do veterinary medicine, I thought my world was ending because there's this career, there are no women, it's running after a cow, and here I am. I think conservation should be more open in terms of everyone can play a part in conservation. One of the biggest challenges that we're facing in northern Kenya is development. We have an engineer somewhere in Nairobi who's, thinking about the big Lancet project that's going to cut across the whole country, and he's an engineer. He has no idea about conservation or wildlife, or he thinks conservation is just for some random people living in northern Kenya and wear cargo pants, and it's just such a weird perception. And it's the same for many careers. People think, oh, you're doing conservation, but yet everyone can be part of it. We need engineers, we need medical doctors, we need researchers, we need ecologists,
sociologists.
We need all those careers to be included in conservation, including a teacher, everyone. So I think keep it open. Don't make it narrow that you're only in conservation when you're doing veterinary medicine and you're darting lions, or you're going with your cargo pants and safaris. Everyone can be part of conservation. We need conservation in urban centers. We need conservations in the park. We need conservation everywhere. So keep it open. Tell them everyone can be part of conservation so that we don't have a narrow perception of what conservation is all about.
That's a good one.
And I think for me, just to add a little bit, is that there are professions that people say it's a calling, like nursing. And for those who are believers, priesthood, they say it's a calling. I consider conservation as a calling. Why? We only have one continent, one global world that we're sharing. What will happen if we lose it? So to a young person who wants to go into conservation, I'll tell that person, you're going into a calling because we only have one planet. Just do it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So there you had it. Don't be afraid to take the leap if you're a young conservationist. Get yourself the experience that you need when you have an opportunity. And anybody can be a conservationist. You could be a chef and you could be a conservationist. So there are no limits, just like the animals have no borders. So we embrace everyone in conservation. Thank you so much. But before you leave, I would just like to find out from the audience if there is anyone who has in any way been involved in the Rising Wildlife Leaders. You could be a former scholar. You could be a career participant. You could be someone from the Emerging Wildlife Leaders. Anyone, please raise your hands. We would like to see you in the audience.
Maybe stand up, Beto.
Yeah, or stand up so we can see you.
Internships, everything.
Wonderful.
Class 8, U+.
Thank you so much. So I would encourage the audience to please have conversations with the people that you've seen standing up, or these that are up here on stage. You can identify them with the tag that they have there. It's written Rising Wildlife Leaders. Thank you so much.